Will, nothing good happens in November, does it?
I don't know. It's like the end of the year.
It's not, Christmas isn't here yet. Halloween's been all the fun stuff.
I mean, for some people, I guess the Melbourne Cup, people like the Melbourne Cup Carnival.
Sure, my wife's birthday's in November. I guess that's good for her. But for the general public, nothing good happens in November until now.
What? What's going on? What are we doing?
TOFOP, us, you and me, we're returning to the live stage for the first time in 6 years. That's right, we are doing shows in Melbourne and Sydney. Melbourne at the Basement Comedy Club, November 11th. Sydney at the Comedy Store, November 25th. Exciting stuff.
These are our first shows in 6 years. 6 years since we last did a live show. Sydney Opera House dropped those microphones, pledged that we would never come back. Entertainment demanded that we would never come back. But in your face, entertainment industry, we're back, baby.
We are back live on stage, Will and Charlie, doing what we do, which we don't know what that is yet, but we'll work it out by the time we get to the stage.
Charlie's been working on it for 6 years, he promises me. It's going to be amazing.
So November 11th, the Basement Comedy Club in Melbourne. November 25th, the Comedy Store in Sydney. Go to our link tree on our socials or go to tofop.com to get your tickets.
See you there.
A listener production.
The creators of this podcast would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which it is recorded. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are the first storytellers of this land. We pay respect to their elders, past, present and emerging, as well as any Indigenous people who may be listening today.
Hello and welcome to TOFOP with Friends. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Wil Anderson.
And we are joined with a Renaissance man. He's an author, he's a podcaster, but for the purposes of this chat, he is a DJ. And the reason we say the purpose of this chat is this has been a long time coming. If you've listened to any TOFOP in the last 18 months, you know that I went down a particularly
been a lot of sizzle.
particularly dark rabbit hole. Or maybe an uplifting rabbit hole. Levins, welcome to the show. For those of you who are unaware, Levins has actually been DJing for Five when they've toured Australia. He toured, was it the start of this year or end of last year, the last tour?
End of last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, you were overseas. You were on getaway, I think,
right, okay.
Charlie. That's why we couldn't do it, because Levins hit me up online. I'm not on a social media anymore, so I don't know if you know that.
This is the straw that broke his back. Getting invited to a Five show.
No, I was keen to go along. Like, I really was, because despite the fact that I didn't have the same level of fascination for Five, on the way through, I'd paid some attention to Five, quite enjoyed it. But it was Charlie's rabbit hole style QAnon fervor, for which he went into the backstory of Five, the songs of Five, the mysteries behind Five, the three remaining members of Five. And of course, you reached out. We'd talked a little over the years, and you became part of this story even on air, because we would reference the fact that you had kind of made this offer to us to go behind the scenes, to tell us what was going on. And so it's so fun that this is finally happening, that we're going to get to have this chat.
Yeah,
I do love to talk about Five.
Well, I want to try something out. So, as Will has stated, I went down a rabbit hole, and it started off just like listening to the songs and being vaguely aware of them from my days at uni, but never really listening to Five when they were actually a band. And then when I sort of started listening to the music more, I started digging deeper into the kind of history of the band and how they were assembled and all this kind of stuff. Now, I think I've constructed sort of archetypes of each member of Five, and I want to test them against your real experience of the three remaining members. So the three remaining members are Scott, Richie, and Sean. Is that correct?
That's right.
So
that means Abs is AWOL, and I don't know what's the last one.
Jay.
Is
Brown.
Is Jay
okay? That's hashtag is Jay okay. We want to know. So now my reading of Scott is he's a cheeky lad, Essex lad. He seems to me to be the one who is most invested in keeping the band going. He's sort of is almost like a pseudo manager. Is that correct?
I get more of that vibe from Richie.
Really? Okay, because Richie, I was
Yeah.
going to say, is the opposite. Richie, to me, seems like a good time guy. Lived in Australia for a little bit, ran a restaurant.
Oh, they're both like very easy to hang out with, but I feel like Richie is more of the frontman of the group.
Right.
Yeah.
And then there's Sean, who, when he was in the band, they sort of had him pegged as the George Harrison, the kind of quiet, shy one. Now, I've seen him be sort of quiet and shy, but he also seems to have a bit of a chip on his shoulder. Is that true?
I think he's more reserved, so I think you could definitely interpret that as being a chip on his shoulder. But he was the first member to leave Five when they originally broke up in the early 2000s. Yeah.
So he left first, but has since come back. Is that the story of Richie? Sean, sorry.
Will, like such.
I don't know. You know what? I felt like I was across
fingernail
this,
deep
and
questions. Of course, Sean left. Before the release of their final single, they made a very controversial music video in which Sean was featured as a cardboard cutout. And they told their fans that he had glandular fever, what would actually happen if he quit the band due to exhaustion and mental distress. But the band had lied to their fans. And I remember Richie saying that he felt terrible about having to lie. This is from an interview in 2001, by the way. Yeah. He felt terrible about
quote your sources
to lie to the fans. But then I believe there was an attempt to reform with all five members in 2007, and they were on board. But Jay had held out, and Jay since then has gone pretty much, apart from one brief appearance in 2011 when they did the big reunion reality series, where Jay got to respond because Sean came out and said some pretty damning things about Jay being a bully, and he felt like he was always being pushed to the side. Jay came out and defended himself and said he was nothing but supportive of all the guys in the band, but then has not been cited since. Now,
is this how we get Jay back, by the way? It feels like we need to call Jay out again. What I mean? That was the only thing that got him out of exile, was to come and respond to being called out.
How did they reach out to you? How did you get drawn into the Vive?
How did you get involved in Five?
So they didn't reach out to me personally. I have a relationship with the tour promoter, Metropolis Touring. I used to do a 90s party in Sydney called the Rhythm of the Night, and it went for quite a few years at Good God Small Club in Sydney. And over the years, we had like a lot of Australian acts play. Joanne, who did Jackie. She came and performed. Swoop, who did Apple Eyes.
I saw Swoop in New Year's Eve, 1994.
Amazing. And off the back of that, I got booked for the Venga Boys tour in 2017
now,
or so.
Can I ask a question that I'm sure you've been asked a million times about touring with the Venga Boys? What is the form of transport? Are you on a plane or on a bus? Because
there were buses. There were buses.
And were they branded the Venga buses?
No, just regular tour buses. And in fact, my one and only very awkward bus story of doing these tours does not involve the Venga bus. It involves Five. So we'll get to that soon.
Okay, good.
But actually, you know what? You know when the Venga Boys tour was? It was whatever year Trump won the election, because I was on tour with the Venga Boys when Trump won, and the night he won, I had to go the Venga bus is kind of be their DJ, pretend like everything was fine.
I mean, if there's going to be any anthem to herald the end of the world, the Venga bus is coming.
The Venga bus is coming. It seems quite appropriate, doesn't it?
So that was the first 90s throwback tour that I did, and it was the Venga Boys, and then it was some other 90s artists. So there was Tina Cousins. There was Sonic. Sonic did Feel So Good, and it feels so good. It's going to be a lot of bad singing from me in this podcast. I only do snippets. And you guys aren't going to get anything from them, because I feel like
Sonic are Australian too?
No. These are she's from the UK. There was on that first one, Joanne, Jackie came. Unfortunately, D-Ream never. Brian Cox never came out to do a live set. But that was the tour that S Club 7 came on, and this is my first, I guess, first kind of history with a troubled pop act.
Right. Yeah. So of the S Club 7, how many of the S Club 7 were on that tour?
3 members. And in fact, the first show was in Auckland, and Joe, who I guess is like kind of like the lead of S Club, got sick and couldn't do the tour. And so the first show in Auckland that night, Bradley and Tina from S Club came out, and they were like, "Hey, we're really sorry, guys. Joe's sick. We can't do a show." And everyone was just like, "What? No!" And
there ain't no party like an S Club party.
Exactly. So it was me. I spent the next day in the hotel lobby with Tina and Bradley, adding parts from the original songs. So all of Joe's parts were in there. Wow. And then Bradley and Tina did backup vocal. Bradley's like the main male vocalist. Right. So all his parts were fine. But I spent like the better part of a day putting their set back together so they could do a set without Joe as S Club 2.
I was going to say, it went really well because you need a minimum of 3 members to carry on with a boy or girl band.
I mean, I would have thought, honestly, that I expect a majority vote. Like, I feel like 3 is even too little out of 7. Like 3 out of 5 I'm fine with, right? That still feels like that's ahead of 50%. But when I go to see S Club 7 and there's any less than 4 of them, I feel like I'm being ripped off.
So that was the first tour. Then the next one was Bewitched, and there were 3 of the 4 members on that tour.
You won't say whatever.
Love Bewitched, great live show. Would DJ
really?
for them any time in the future.
And 3 out of 4 original of Bewitched.
And it was only because one of them had just had a baby, so technically still in Bewitched, just couldn't do that tour then.
Right.
Yeah. Did they still wear the double denim Bewitched?
Yes.
Oh, they do.
Yeah, you bet they do. Yeah. And that triple denim to make up for the 4th member's absence. Then it was Atomic Kitten, and I'm not too familiar with their history, but I think most of the members were present. E17,
E17
with a very, very different lineup to what we.
Well, what I understand with
yes.
E17 is the actual 2 talented ones. So Brian and the Brian who was the singer, and then the other guy who wrote all the music, both left. So it's the 2 backup dancers who are now E17. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess like the one that I don't remember his name, but the one that I remember is like the face of the group. He's still in the group.
Okay.
His face looks significantly different, but he's still in the group.
I got the impression that everything was not all right with what went on with 17.
But that fits in with your rule of 50%, Will, because 2 of them, 2 of the 4. So you would.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I'm happy with that. Yeah.
The third guy is technically in the group now. Robbie is his name, and he's like he's like a garage vocalist. He's got songs with like Craig David and stuff like that from the early 2000s. And then Liberty X, who were great as well. They had a song called Just a Little Bit.
Yeah. They won like an X Factor or something like one of those kind of shows, reality shows. It was interesting. I watched this in doing my deep dive on 5. There was a series that came out, reality series in 2011 called The Big Reunion, where they got all those British pop acts that you just mentioned and put them on stage for this big tour. And the story behind each act, like they would feature every episode. They'd sort of feature the backstory of each of the acts, and it was always the same pattern, which was like, we answered an ad in a paper, we did like a talent audition, we got put together, recorded a couple of songs. The first album went gangbusters. We were put on a grueling schedule for about a year and a half. We pumped out a second album. Then we all went crazy and wanted to, we all had suicidal thoughts and wanted to leave. And it's like,
especially S Club, because I think they released 3 albums, and then they also had a TV show, like a sitcom.
That's right.
That they had for a few years as well. Like they were ground to a pulp.
So that was a business model, though. It seems like with pop music, I don't know if it's the same with K-pop now, but in the late 90s, early 2000s, you just sign up as many young, bright-eyed, singers and dancers as you can. Just put them on a 7-album contract, which they can never fulfill, grind out a bunch of hit singles, and once you're done with them, just throw them in the trash heap, because you'll find a bunch of other kids coming out of drama school or something.
Or in K-pop's case, just send them off to military service.
It's for re-education
Well,
camps.
that's what they do, right?
Yeah.
Like, they have a natural cutoff. It's the perfect system in K-pop. You've got to do your military service before, 30? Isn't that it?
That's where Jay is.
serving in the Korean military.
I mean, it would be amazing if it turns out that Jay was actually like, and it was M6, like one of their top assassins. Like he's just gone from being in a boy band to being this like mercenary.
Yeah. Jay's the new. That's
the
great.
last thing you see before you die is Jay from Five standing above you with a garroting wire.
And his code name is still Jay, though. That's what I didn't
have to print off new business cards. They've just scratched out 5 and put M6. So when you were contacted by Five's management or by Five themselves, how familiar were you with the oeuvre?
Yeah. Were you a Five fan?
I've got two younger sisters, so I've always been very like. When I was a kid, I used to get up as early as possible on Saturday morning.
Would you say
so
everybody would get up?
Rage Top 50, just me, just me, unfortunately. But yeah, so I remember like it was a big deal when Spice Girls suddenly entered the. I think they just appeared in the Rage Top 50. They were just number one straight away, and I was like, who are these women? And that was, I guess, that's the first big UK pop group, and then from there, it felt like there was a new one every week. And Five were definitely in there for a bit. I was familiar with like 5, 6 of their songs. Now I know about 20 of them because of the 3 tours that I've done with them.
Yeah, right.
But I have a fondness for a lot of their songs. I think Everybody Get Up is my favorite of their songs.
I was saying,
but also you were just saying that you know maybe 20 of their songs. Are they literally doing 20 songs in?
Oh yeah, and it's,
really. And
well,
who's that for? Like, is there people who want to see all 20 songs?
There are people that every tour will do the VIP meet and greet package, and they're like, "Oh, good to see you again." Like,
they know them.
There are people who this is their favorite group when they were young, and it's still their favorite group now.
Yeah, I understand that. But if I went back to my favorite group when I was young, I'd be like, play your top 8 to 10 songs twice if you want to fill out the time.
Sure, yeah.
But I'm not sure that I need to hear the next 8 to 10. So when those next 8 to 10, if the ones that obviously there's the 5 or 6 that
everyone knows,
like everyone might know because they were just like, you know, the big pop songs. Even if you don't know them, if you heard them, you'd be like, oh yeah, okay, I do remember that song. Then let's say for the fans, there's another 4 or 5 songs on each of those like albums that like, because you know, if you're a fan of something, you might know that extra song or 2 off an album. But this is a deep bench. If you're going 20 songs deep, are the fans there for song 20 as much as they are for the other ones? What's the kind of
song 20 is generally the hit, right?
Yeah,
the one that they're all waiting for, and they do play Get On Up twice. Right. Keep on moving is what I mean. Keep on moving.
Yeah, that's their encore.
Yeah, they have like a remix of it that they play as well. But they like, so both them and Bewitched and a few of the other groups still release an album every few years. Oh. So there are a few new songs in the set which people don't know, but they're, you know, relatively supportive of.
I noticed that on their Spotify they released a new album last year called Light Years or something like that, or Light Speed or something like that. But I've not heard any of it. Is it in this similar, is it a different sound for them, or is it still very poppy kind of?
There's like 1 or 2 that are a bit of that kind of like pop rap rock realm, which is totally like their wheelhouse. But there's one ballad, and that was like the low point of the set for me. and they're encouraging people to put their phones up every time. But you know, I mean, like I think it's cool that they are not just touring and making money off what they used to do. Like, as much as I would much rather, you know, Will's scenario of hearing the 8 songs. I think it is, if you want to keep touring as an act, you have to keep making new music and proving your relevance through doing that.
And I mean, I agree. Like, I was actually, I mean, don't get me wrong, if I went to see Five, if I'd taken up your invitation to come along and see Five and I'd had to sit through 15 songs I did not know, I may have taken it really personally, and possibly against Levins, your entire family. There would have been repercussions. But yeah, I dig artistically what you're saying. The fact that, you know, they aren't just going out and, you know, doing, you know, 2 versions of each of the 5, you know, biggest songs. They're literally trying to go, well, this is who we are and this is what keeps us creatively engaged, and we'll play the songs you like, but we're going to, you know, do something for ourselves as well.
And I think, you know, yeah, maybe the crowd isn't as excited to hear those new songs, but the band members are like they haven't played them to death, and they actually are like, you know, maybe this could be a hit in the future.
It's the bit they look forward to in the show.
Yeah, for sure. So they make up for the lack of energy in the room.
One thing I've noticed from seeing the videos of Five performing now, the three guys, is that the choreo that they do is exactly the same as the choreography from the original music video. So they haven't tried to trick it up or like it's. I mean, maybe not the entire dance routine, but for the chorus, it's very specifically the choreo that they did in the music video.
Yeah, it's a lot of like stomping and turning and shuffling and that kind of stuff. It could be, but you know, it is still impressive to see them all in time with it. But yeah, I think, I guess if I had like spent like a good year having those moves drilled into my brain by my management, like why change it?
So do they have a manager? Is someone looking after them?
I'm not sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But it is just the three of them on tour.
They don't have some cartoonish, like old school manager touring around with them. Like they're
no entourage.
Okay. So you tell, all right, I'm really interested then. Like, so when you say, like, what's the actual show look like? Because these guys are what, in their 40s, mid 40s? Like,
early to mid 40s.
Early to mid 40s. And so, like, energy wise, like across the show, is there still like a lot of energy, a lot of dancing, or is it like that's kind of just the icing on the cake? You know, it comes out every now and again to, you know, remind you of the old times, or are they trying to replicate like the old time? Like, what's the mix of that?
It definitely looks like like three older guys doing the dance moves, but they are energetic the entire time, and they're not out of breath. And they are like, you know, they sweat profusely for sure, but like I think that's a good thing. You know, they're putting a lot of effort into each show.
Yeah.
You know, they open the first song they do is like their take on "We Will Rock You" by Queen, and everyone gets nice and hype. I don't know. Yeah, it's not something I would buy a ticket to, but like everyone that would gets a good show.
And
for sure.
is the audience, the demo, age wise, does it match the guys on stage? Is it anyone younger, or is it all just?
It's a weird mix.
Really?
Like, yeah, I wouldn't say there's anyone like younger than late 20s, but it's not like they're performing to a sea of, you know, 40 plus for sure.
Right. And
what about men to women?
Male, female,
what's the ratio of?
Yeah, it's mostly women.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't. I guess that's unsurprising.
That's pretty common for most of these 90s throwback gigs.
Well, they're mainly dance parties, really, as well. You know, people want to go out and.
Well,
dance.
the more dance focused ones, there's a lot more queer crowd, whereas it's overwhelmingly straight at the Five gigs.
Is there anyone like Will and I? Is there anyone there you think is there from some kind of like? There's like some kind of ironic enjoyment, or there's some kind of like nostalgia more than it is.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's definitely like some nostalgia, like, you know. Like, oh, how funny would it be if we go see Five this weekend?
Yeah,
for sure. But the most part there are people that they're diehard fans. And I think they made the smart decision to stop trying to do enormous shows in Australia, and I guess do a tour every year or two in smaller venues. Like they did the Factory Theatre in Sydney and sold it out. And it's just like, you know, yeah, it's a smaller venue, but it's sold out. You can't, you know, it's still a sea of people.
Yeah, it's a good time party, right? Like that's big enough that if that's sold out and you're Five, I mean, do you get the impression that they enjoy the life they have? Like, you know, that they love doing these
Five happy Levins.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you feel like there's two ways that it could be, which is they're very grateful about the fact that they still get to tour around and do gigs, or some sort of like, oh God, I'm still fulfilling this pact with the devil where this is the only way that I can, you know, kind of earn my living.
I have to push this boulder up this hill and it's just going to roll all the way down again.
Roll back down again until there's like less than a voting majority of us and we are deregistered as an official, you know.
One member of Five on stage is Five. Yeah, I think if you asked me after the first tour, which was just before COVID, so like, it was either end of 2019 or the beginning of 2020. And that was Five. S Club came again, and it was the three members this time. Joe made it out of Auckland. And then a group called Big Brothers, like BROVAZ, who were like, I can't even hum you one of their songs. I know they did they sampled These Are a Few of My Favorite Things from Sound of Music before Ariana Grande did, and made a point of telling the crowd that every one of their shows. And the last show of
the
that
dance
tour,
floor jumping quite like a gripe from the band performing.
yeah, the last show of that tour, I was in some Queensland hotel room as Big Brothers had the loudest argument I've ever heard.
About what?
I don't know what about. I was just
Were Big Brothers actually?
Are Big Brothers okay?
Were they brothers though? Like,
I don't know.
as in-
There's two women in the group, so no.
Okay, so they wouldn't be.
Yeah.
Do you think that the two women had big brothers? Maybe they both had big brothers. Like,
I'll leave that for Charlie's next
I'll
rabbit hole
do
that
some
he
research.
disappears into. But so that tour sucked. That tour, I think Scott from Five had lost a family member just before the tour, and he was like, that said, he was the only one that I had any form of conversation with during the tour, but he was pretty down. It was my fault. I got off on a really bad foot with the Five fellas because, well, we got on a tour bus after the first show.
Not the Venga bus.
Not the Venga bus. The Venga bus was not coming that day. But we were on the tour bus, and the tour manager looks through the bus and she goes, "Are we missing anyone?" And I say, "Yeah, there's only 3 members of Five and 3 members of S Club 7." I think I said, yeah, we're missing 2 members of Five and 4 members of S Club 7.
Yeah, come on.
And
I mean, that's
me and Bradley.
Gear.
Me and Bradley,
good quality material.
Me and Bradley were already friends from S Club, so he brushed it off. He laughed, but Rich from Five stood up on the bus and goes, "Oh, ha ha ha! Like we haven't heard that one before. By the way, caught your set last night. It was shit."
Oh my God! All right, okay.
Richie's meant to be the sweet one from the group.
And he hated me for the rest of that tour. Hated me.
I mean, come on, man. That's like, firstly, even if you've heard it before, you've got to admire that is quality material, well presented.
Yeah.
And secondly, if you are touring with 3 out of the 5 original members of Five and your band was called Five, that just comes with the territory. You can't then expect that people aren't going to constantly.
And you're in Australia. Like we excel at the low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Like
exactly.
Yeah.
Come on, mate.
I think it's one of those things though where, because I've seen them in interviews make the same joke. I think it's one of those things where we can joke about it, but this is our word. 5 being 3, that's ours, not yours. Don't appropriate our culture.
So the next tour, and I've got a few great stories from that first tour as well. But the next tour, I got to know the guys a lot better because it was just Five headlining, and then a Sydney-based group called S2S who had a big song in 2000 called Sister
to Sister.
Yeah, cool. My sister.
Well, you know the thing about Sister to Sister. Here we go. Here's a connection to the TOFOP universe.
They were actually brothers.
I once, during a celebrity football match at the SCG, half-time during a Sydney Swans game, what I was trying to do was one of the girls from Sister, I believe both the sisters from Sister to Sister were playing in the match, but I was tackling one of the girls from Sister to Sister. She had the ball. And what I was trying to do, because I am a big man and she was a young woman, I was trying to gently, kind of just hold her shoulders and place her on the ground.
Is this a statement you gave to the tribunal the following week?
Mate, this is a statement I had to give to her dad when I came off, because you'll hear what happens next. So then at that moment, someone from behind me tackles me and grabs my arms, which makes a throwing motion. So it basically looks like I just threw this young woman to the ground. And so she was fine with it, but her dad was not fine with it. Her dad was real mad at me. So, I have a sister-to-sister connection.
I actually been texting Sharon from S2S this morning about the next tour, and I'm going to ask her.
Yeah, does she remember being tackled?
Did he tackle you or Chrissy
at the SCG?
SCG or S2CG is the question.
S to SCG, man.
Because it was a smaller tour, I spent a lot more time with them. They did a longer set, and I guess the first set, you're kind of just like learning the cues. And I would always make one fuck up, just play the wrong song at the wrong time or bring it in. They had, their set is tight to the point where they even pre-plan when they do banter in between which songs. Like, so some songs you hit start immediately after the last one.
Oh, yeah.
And the other ones, you got to leave them a little bit so they can literally say Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi.
Oh, no. Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the best is like, I didn't have the heart to tell him because the Aussie, Aussie, Aussie chant, it goes Aussie, 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 oi, 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 Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi. Aussie, oi, Aussie, oi, Aussie, 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 oi, oi. Everyone listening knows that, but we all know. Yes. He didn't do the Aussie, oi, Aussie, oi. At the end. He'd just do 3 Aussie, Aussie, Aussies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I wanted to be like, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Did they bust out some of the classics like, hey, we just did a show in Melbourne and we thought Melbourne rocked, but nobody rocks like Rockhampton?
Nah. Give him a little bit more credit.
Okay.
But I got to know them a lot better this time, and like we were on way better footing with it. They even like apologizing for the last tour, like saying that they don't even remember most of it. It was just like not a great time for most of them.
Okay.
And we got talking about S Club, and Rich was saying, I cannot believe that they started calling themselves S Club 3. Like they finally have the opportunity to get rid of the number curse,
right?
And just call themselves S Club. Don't you think like my greatest wish is that we called ourselves anything besides 5, because now people always associate the fact that there's 5 members of the group. And so, as we go on, there's not. And we always have to explain ourselves. It sucks. I hate it. If I was S Club, I would just call myself S Club. Why did they?
It makes absolutely no sense that you would feel, because 5, it's the whole name. Like if they were the dirty 5 or the horny 5 or the, the fat 5, whatever, you could just change, you could drop the 5, change the name.
To horny?
S-Club,
your band's just called Horny?
Why not? You want to go see Horny tonight?
Right.
Horny were good tonight. I think that works fine. Better than the horny 5. So, but it's all their name. So there's no way for them to do anything about it, is it? Like that's unless they did, because originally with 5, wasn't it spelled 5-ive?
I don't think that was official. I think that was
okay.
I think that was kind of interpreted by fans and stuff. There might have been some official.
I thought that was their logo. I think that was the logo in some of the early clips. If you go back,
so if you change the 5 in the logo, like to the 3-ive, but it was 3-ive. I think 3-ive would be fine. Maybe they should just call themselves 3-ive.
In that reality series, The Big Reunion, they have a big discussion when it becomes clear that Jay's not coming back. They have Abs on board, but Jay's not coming back, and they have this big discussion about, well, do we bring in another rapper? And so they auditioned a bunch of guys, and it's an amazing sequence. It's like the opposite of one of those Pretty Woman shopping sequences where it's just like all these actors/models coming in who have no musical ability or can't rap or anything, and just the 4 guys in the band realizing that they're not going to find another Jay. And so then they have a very serious discussion about, do we change the name of the band to 4? And it's like they put a lot of kind of consideration into, well, does it make sense? I would have loved it if they had gone through with that, and then 4 years later had to downgrade from 4 to 3.
We're now 3.
It's a countdown.
Actually, I like it.
Just every couple of years, you just got to, another member leaves, you just got to downgrade the name of the band.
Speaking of auditions, have you seen at some point in the mid-2000s, Sean goes on The Voice or the UK show?
Yeah, it's very upsetting.
He doesn't get through to the next round, and then once they've buzzed him out, everyone on the panel realizes that he was in 5, and there's just this everyone. I don't know who the host is. One of the hosts is one of the judges is Tom Jones or something.
Jesse J. Because Jesse J is like, oh yeah, 5. That was like the first concert I ever went to when I was a kid. And it's just like, well, that doesn't make the decision any easier.
No, it doesn't.
And I think that may have been like a catalyst for him rejoining the group with the others.
Oh, so that was him.
So Sean was going to go, that was him, his big solo moment. People are going to hear my voice and realise I don't need 4 guys dancing around me. I'm going to be the star of this operation. And then even Jessie J wouldn't turn around her chair.
Well,
I feel like he likes doing ballads, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
As part of my deep dive, I found a clip of Five performing on Hey Hey It's Saturday doing
Of course, that happens.
When the Lights Go Out. And they're singing live over a backing track, but the harmonies are not quite there because Sean has quite a high bit when the lights go out, and it's like he's not nailing it, and he has to do it like 3 or 4 times, and it's just like, oh, maybe there was a reason he was the quiet one. Like literally, like it's kind of like when you got Sid Vicious on bass. It's like, let's just turn that down a bit. We'll bring the other band members to the front.
Now, are there any moments, can I ask, in the live show, like when they play When the Lights Go Out, for example, do the lights go out at some stage?
Of course they do. Come on.
I mean, well,
we're professionals here.
Mate, I assumed as much, but, I'm just asking. I'm curious.
When you sing Everybody Get Up, does everyone, in fact, get up? Are we going to be that literal with the songs?
Well, I mean, if you've got a song When the Lights Go Out, I'm just interested in when the lights go out in that song. Do the lights go out more than once in that song? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
you know what? I will say the lighting guy could have a bit more fun with it.
Yeah, right.
That should be like, it should, if I was like, choreoing the show, the lights would go black on stage, no lights at all. And someone would actually point out, hey, Richie, the lights just went out. And then I would have me drop that intro and everyone would go wild.
I would.
Maybe I'll suggest that.
I would like to me, when I go and see like an act like this, particularly for the big songs, like, so if you're going to do your other 15, but for your big 5, I want that sort of WWE style, like, lead into it. You know what I mean? Like I still remember to this day, one of my favorite moments ever at a gig was seeing Cypress Hill at the Enmore, and they were about to do it Hits from the Bong that has that intro. You're trying to get crazy with me, SA, don't you know? Oh, that's it. Yeah. And so they're doing that, but they really did it as a like real, they were just doing crowd work, like getting the crowd into it. They're going, "You're a good crowd tonight, Sydney," and everyone roars.
We thought Melbourne rocked, but
we thought Melbourne was a crazy crowd. But you were a real crazy crowd. It's like, do you want to get crazy with me, Sydney?
Yeah,
don't
great.
you know I'm local? Bang, and it drops in. That's what I want to see for those big songs. Like if I went to see Five, absolutely, I want the lights going out. I want a little pantomime between the 3 guys. What's happening?
There's too many lights on in this venue. There's too many lights on. What can we do about the lights? Everybody seems to be too low to the ground. Everyone's too down. Yeah. Can we get everyone? What's the opposite of down?
I mean,
let's get rid of all these seats.
So I had a bit of a question. This is more of a deep dive question.
Okay.
One of my favorite tracks of Five that is not one of their more popular ones is Battlestar. Does that make the set list?
I've never heard that one before.
Right.
So no,
they sampled Battlestar. They sampled the Battlestar Galactica. I played it to Will on TOFOP. He wasn't impressed. I really thought I was going to get a better reaction. But they sampled.
Well, I mean, mate, Five are doing 20 songs, and apparently it's not amongst those 20. So I think I'm with the band.
Because I genuinely think that is a good song, but it's all rapped by Abs, which might be. It's mainly an Abs and Jay song, so probably maybe that's why. But that sort of leads to my next question, which is who has taken over the rap duties?
Scott does most of the raps.
Right.
Yeah.
And is he a capable rapper?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I love Scott. Scott, I have the most he is the warmest of the 3 of them.
Okay.
And he also is just such a character. Like you can tell he's a bit of a boozer, or at least has been. And so my first Scott story, and this was my Scott my 5 deep dive after the first tour.
Perfect.
Because there was one night we were at I think we were at like a casino in Tasmania or something like that. That was where the show was. And I was DJing because my main role, like, yeah, it's DJing for the groups themselves. But my main role, and the reason I kept getting in these gigs, is because I'll play in between the acts and I'll just hype the crowd up by dropping tons of other tracks from the era really quickly. And it's just, you get people more and more excited as the lead up. But you can, depending on, like, I like to know exactly how much time until the next act comes on, because I burn through the tracks pretty quick to keep the energy really, really high.
Yep.
And I'd burned through almost all of, like, the really big relevant songs at this gig in Tassie, and then I get told, "Hey, it's going to be another half hour before 5 come on," and I was like, "Oh no, really? Why?" And they were like, "Oh, one of them is waiting for some food," and I was like, "Oh, okay, no worries." And they ended up coming on, and it was like Scott, you could tell something was a bit up, like not right with Scott. And the show finished and he goes, "Did they get the beans ready yet?" And I was like, what's going on? And then he was like, "Well, make sure tomorrow night they've got beans." And I was so intrigued. What's going on? So the next morning I go to the breakfast buffet, and Scott's already there, and he's got this enormous plate with just toast, and it's like a dinner plate instead of a bowl, but the entire dinner plate is just piled high with bright red baked beans. And I was like, "Morning, Scott, what you got there?" And he was like, "I just love beans." And I was like, wow, this guy loves baked beans. And so, yeah, the night before, he'd requested that he'd be able to that there'd be baked beans that he'd be able to eat for dinner, and the hotel wasn't able to get them for him. And it wasn't diva behavior. It was a case of him, like, literally needing beans to function, because I found an article.
Yeah.
No, so the Mirror did an article shortly after the tour in late 2019, and the headline of this article is 5 singer Scott Robertson had a condition that left him scared of salad and fruit.
Oh.
And basically it's like him saying, like I've come so far, and in particular it'll be like, there's one line here: "When Scott married his wife Kerry in 2005, things failed to improve. For breakfast, I'd have Cocoa Pops. Lunch would be beans on white toast with a little bit of cheese, and dinner would be a plain burger with chips or a plain steak with mashed potato." But he was afraid of anything colorful, afraid of curry, afraid of vegetables in general. And it was a serious complex. And so if you go back, like I was like, wow, I wonder how much evidence of this there is. And so if you Google Scott Robertson and beans together, you'll actually find interviews or like fan websites, and it's like, Richie, what's your favorite thing? Girls. Abs, what's your favorite thing?
Drugs.
Partying. And then Scott, what's your favorite thing? Beans.
Beans. Wow.
So it's a food aversion. He has a food aversion.
Yeah.
I've got a friend who's like that, where he's like, he can only eat like literally 3 forms of food and nothing colorful. Like he has plain white toast with like boiled chicken. Cheese pizza is about the most extravagant he gets. But do you know what the origin of it is? It a dietary thing, or it's a psychological?
Look, I've skimmed the article. I didn't read it in
a
full.
5 song? I only like beans. I want to hear that.
Beans.
Yeah.
Just beans.
Yeah.
Just like a song called Beans. Surely there should be a song called Beans.
Yeah. Wasn't there a rapper on Hustle and Flow called Beans?
Beans?
Yeah.
I mean, Beans should be.
Beans be the new rapper for 5?
I mean, that'd be too.
There is a rapper called Beans from a group called Anti-Pop Consortium.
Right.
Yeah, but that would be too much for poor old Scott, was it?
Yeah.
No, what was the?
Yeah.
I mean, if he was next to a guy called Beans, that would just be constantly reminding him of Beans while he's trying to perform. And I also what I love is the casino in Tasmania could not get
source the
baked beans. Like the most common of all foodstuffs you would imagine that it is possible to provide for someone. Like it's not like he's saying, "I won't go on stage unless I've had
brown M&Ms."
Levins, can I ask you a question? This will feel like it's come out of nowhere, but it's continuing a conversation that Charlie and I have had, and I think you'll be a good experiment for this. When I tell you about Michael Flatley, Lord of the Dance,
of course,
yeah.
Levins is an Irish name.
So the Lord of the Dance, Michael Flatley. Do you remember any quirky tidbit about the Lord of the Dance, Michael Flatley, that was like a rumor that went around?
No, I just remember seeing his promos like in between.
So you don't remember
like, ad
anything
breaks.
about him being so
so-
charged up after dancing? You don't remember?
Yeah, there was a story
relating to that?
about Michael Flatley that went around Richard Gere gerbil style, like not like that specific thing, but like one of those urban myths or real things. Charlie and I tried to get to the bottom of whether like it was just an urban myth or whether there's something. So we're just asking people. So there's no trick to this
I'll
question.
let you know if I ever DJ a Michael Flatley show.
I think he's got a pretty aggressive form of cancer at the moment. So fingers crossed you will be DJing a Michael Flatley concert in the future.
All right. Okay. Well, yeah, there was a rumor that he immediately after coming off stage had to have sex because he was so charged up from his...
no, I've totally heard that.
you have heard that?
Absolutely.
Oh,
yeah.
yes. Okay.
Awesome.
All right.
Because we've surveyed 3 people,
Yeah.
2 Australians, 1 American. The 2 Australians had heard
Yeah.
of it and the 1 American hadn't. So Will and I are trying to get to the bottom of, is this a Australian-specific phenomenon that we...
Yeah, but I mean, Will, I used to listen to your show when I was in high school. Was that? I probably would have just heard you joking about it there.
That's what we can't work out. Is this like a
Did you
closed
start this
circle where
rumor?
we're all just have said it to each other, or is it like? I mean, imagine if that works out what it is that I just made it up one day, and then. But we've gone to the internet, and you know how like I mean, I literally typed Richard Gere gerbil in, and there is like. I stopped counting the pages on Google that came up. There is so many takes on that, so many articles. Like there's a whole page on Wikipedia called gerbling.
It's probably
like,
a flash game.
Oh, yeah, honestly. Whereas Michael Flatley has sex 10 minutes like straight after coming off stage. Any iteration of how we ask that question to Google,
Michael Flatley plus charged up.
nothing.
Nothing.
Like honestly, there's articles about his sex addiction.
We found
there's
one on a forum for mothers.
Yeah.
We found one like entry from a woman
We found
saying,
one reference to it.
a bunch of horny women talking about how they still think they'd do him even though he's 65.
Yeah.
And then one lady saying, oh yeah, he has to have sex 10 minutes after coming off stage. But that was it.
But nothing.
Wow.
No, like record of him saying it in an interview of it being referenced in anything. And you know how the internet, even if it's not true, will normally. I've never like the other day I was on the radio and there was a guy playing the mandolin, and the guy I was chatting to, whose show it was, sent me a message about the fact that there was a lot of mandolin in the thing. And so I was like, oh, it'd be funny if I could find a picture of the Mandalorian playing the mandolin that I could send back in response to this like thing. I typed Mandalorian playing the mandolin into Google. There was like 100 different options, 100 different options of people like, but I cannot work out where this rumor has come from, like, or this. Anyway,
we should go to
sidetrack.
Well, when we get,
Yeah.
we should go to Snopes. Well, maybe Snopes
Yes.
will have some explanation for that. Hey,
Bewitched might know as fellow Irishmen.
who?
Yeah.
Bewitched.
Oh yeah.
Could you ask next time?
That was like the wildest I've ever seen a crowd go on one of these tours.
Really?
Is the Irish dancing bit in C'est La Vie.
Yeah,
People
right.
are like, they are there for that and that only. And it is 30 seconds where it is just screaming as these girls dance, Irish dancing on stage.
And so I just want to just back to the Jay thing with Five.
Yes.
Do the fans like? Are you witnessing like fan interactions and stuff? Do the fans ever bring up Abs or Jay? Like, does that come up, or do people just accept it? It's 3. 5 is 3 now.
No, I do have Jay stories from other members of other bands. Like Joanne said that they did she did a pop tour in the late 90s that Five were on, and that Abs was very cheeky, her words. And I think Bewitched shared similar stories too. The Abs was like, he was like the Larry lad of the group.
Yeah. And what about
Party
Jay
animal.
though? What stories did you get about Jay? Because he's an enigma.
I don't have any Jay tales.
That's the thing, right? He's the Michael Flatley of Five. There's nothing about him online. Like there is. He obviously doesn't have any social media or anything like that. Apparently, that was he was Wil Anderson before Wil Anderson. The reason he didn't join the band again is he was told he'd have to get a Twitter account, and he said, "Nah, I'm not into it. I'm not doing it. I'm not into social media." Yeah. So the most information we've get is that he is living in Wales. Someone sent us an article. They're at a book festival in Wales, and that Jay from Five was there. But someone brought up that he was Jay from Five, and he immediately left the venue he was in. So I don't think we're sort of trying to tread this fine line of we want to know what's happened to Jay, but we don't want to spook him.
We want to know that Jay's okay, but we don't want to be, like those people who made that podcast about Richard Simmons, where they made life even rougher for Richard Simmons. Like, we don't want to be those people, but we want to know if Jay's okay.
We want the.
I'll try and ask. Yeah. I mean, like, look, I think. I want to. If should Five ever listen to this podcast, like, I really do enjoy working with them, and and I think, like I said, I think it's admirable that they're still creating music and actually putting effort into their live show, because a lot of the acts that I've mentioned that I've been on tour with so far, like the cringe levels and just like the lack of like effort that goes into some of their live shows, is just makes it my job so much harder, because I'm just standing behind them the whole time. And so when people don't want to look at the act embarrassing themselves, they look at me like, why are you letting this happen, Levins?
It's your fault. You seem to be the constant here. This is your fault.
I don't have that with during Five. Like, even the ballad song that I don't particularly care for. Like,
also, if any of the members of Five ever listen to this, or any of the other 9 podcasts we have done about Five, just keep in mind that while comedic, we have talked about the band Five to hundreds of thousands of people over the last year.
For sure.
Burning. The amount of people who have texted me like tour information about this upcoming tour. Like, if anything, we are doing some low-key marketing for Five.
I feel like we're doing more good than harm.
It's like, they're like, why is Battlestar one of our 5th most listened to songs this month?
So, Levins, I have a picture here that you posted on your Instagram of Sonic the Hedgehog that was drawn by Scott. Is that right?
Yeah, so the last show of the tour at the factory in Sydney, I get there just after their sound check to go set my stuff up, and there is a big cardboard picture of Sonic the Hedgehog, like a little crude, scrawled in marker, and I have a podcast. We talk about video games and pop culture called Hey Fam with my friend Angus Truscott, and Sonic is like somewhat of a meme of a character. Like, there's as much to make fun of about the character that there is to love. Like, for a character that is, I guess one of the top 10 most instantly recognizable characters on the face of the earth, there's not a lot of quality immediately associated with the character. So he's a very easy character to make fun of. And we'd been doing so quite a lot that week because a new Sonic game just came out, which was as much baffling as it was enjoyable to play. And so, and in fact, I had shaped my, when you go over your download limit on your phone, and they shape you so you have like an extremely like dwarfed like download rate on your phone. I don't know if you've ever done that. Well, I did that because I connected my Nintendo Switch to my phone so I could download the new Sonic game on a plane, and completely ruined my life for the rest of that month.
Oh my God.
And so that was on my mind. And then I step into the dressing room and there's this big picture of Sonic. And I was just like, how the fuck did this get here? Because at no point have, any member of Five mentioned video games, let alone Sonic the Hedgehog. And I was like, I saw the boys after they finished their soundcheck as they came in, and I was like, hey, who did this? Like, where'd this Sonic picture come from? And Scott goes, oh yeah, I draw him all the time. He's the only thing I can draw, so I just draw him all the time. And I was like, can I have this? And they were baffled, but I now have a picture that Scott drew of Sonic the Hedgehog, and I got them all to sign it on the last date of the tour.
And so they call you Lemons. Is that your nickname?
Lemons, yeah, hilarious. Yeah, it's a good bit.
Is that revenge for you doing that? We're missing 2 members of Five on the bus.
I think so. Yeah. They call me Lemons. I mean, look, some of the tours, most of the acts at best they just call me DJ. Mm-hmm. So Lemons is at least a variation on a name, and they put a small amount of effort into learning my name. Yeah,
it means that they either know your last name enough to be able to parody it, or have at least got close to what your last name is.
Yeah, definitely. What's funny is that there's a member of Atomic Kitten whose name eludes me. I can't even do a fruit parody of her name. That's how bad I am at remembering all the members. But yeah, she genuinely thought my name was DJ Levins. So that made their joke a bit funnier.
I can see in the signatures here. So I'm assuming. So Richie wrote Lemons, you juicy
sexy
mother.
Juicy mother. Wow.
You juicy mother. And is this Sean who wrote to DJ Levins? Only gets it wrong once a show.
No, that's Sean. And that was me. That was me. I think I literally would make one small mistake every single show. And they would kind of like jeer me about it afterwards. And I did say like, "Oh, it's fine. I'm consistent. I only get it wrong once a show." And they thought that was hilarious. So,
well, Levins, thank you for coming on to TOFOP Plus.
Yes.
We might get you back on at some point, like maybe after this latest tour, we can sort of get some fresh information. If you can do some digging about Jay, finding out if Jay's okay. I do follow Abs Love on Instagram. He posts some cryptic, like homemade rap videos from time to time.
So he's still making music?
He's still making music. He just did a Bad Boys of Pop tour with a bunch of other guys who have been kicked out of other boy bands.
Wow.
Oh, really?
That's insane. I love
there's a dude
that.
from Blue. There was a dude from another band, and it's like they're all the guys with the tattoos, and I'm assuming former drug habits.
Yes.
Doing a tour at the moment.
Great.
So Abs seems to be thriving, but yeah, Jay's the one I'm fascinated to know. Like, I don't need to intrude, but just like, are they in contact with him anymore?
On the down low.
What's he up to now?
Yeah.
Is he living in Wales as I've surmised? But just anything we can get would be great.
And are there any other, maybe is there a dark 90s pop group secret that you would love me to try and tour with in the future?
I mean, you know what the funny thing is? It's so funny that I don't think I was into much of this music at the time. But now, like when you were listing all those things, there was a real big part of me that was like, I actually reckon I could go to one of those shows. I feel like I'm nostalgic for a time I didn't even experience in the first place.
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't like these songs. I didn't like these songs at the time, but why now do I have such an overwhelming?
World is a terrifying, scary place right now, and we want to retreat to a safer time in which we had no responsibilities and things weren't as bad. When climate change was just something we sort of vaguely were aware of, when people could still afford housing, all this kind of stuff.
A different time, the Industrial Revolution obviously changed everything forever. And there's one factory that I am particularly interested in, which was the CNC Music Factory. Do you know anything about the CNC Music Factory?
Are they even like people? I feel like
Freedom Williams.
CNC Factory.
Freedom Williams.
Okay, is it not just one person though?
Is it just one?
It's a one-man factory, right?
I thought there was two, but maybe it was one guy and like an offsider.
Well, Freedom Williams he went solo because his first Freedom Williams, his first debut single as a solo artist was called Freedom.
Okay.
Where he sang about being called Freedom, where he sampled George Michael's Freedom.
Excellent.
I mean,
stick to a theme, right?
Straight to the point.
I mean, the Eurodance stuff, I think, is well overdue for a big comeback, because there was that joking song, "Planet of the Bass," that kind of went very viral a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
and so that, and my son, who's 9, adores that, like has memorized the entire rap from it. And so I've been playing him a lot of like, Mr. Vane and those songs that have that, big, like nonsensical hook, and then like a deep voiced rapper coming out of nowhere and just spouting random lines.
Well, my daughter,
the one that I like. I mean, this is not quite in this genre, because I know they were more an art This group was an art project more than a pop band, but even though they were kind of like a pop band as well. But the KLF was like was like what I did love the KLF. I was totally up for. And if at some stage the KLF, I don't know, are they alive still? Are the KLF? It was two guys, right?
They just made a documentary about them, I think. Years ago.
I haven't seen that documentary. I would love to watch it.
And there's a book. Apparently there's an amazing book about them as well that came out a couple of years ago as well. But I don't know.
Because if the KLF we're reforming and we're like playing Glastonbury, I reckon
we're doing the Justified and Ancient Tour 2025.
Yeah. But if they were doing if KLF played Glastonbury, I would go to Glastonbury. That would be enough. Like that would be the thing that would be enough for me to
Pull
go,
a tent out of the house.
All right, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm going to go and like camp in some mud. The two things I hate the most in the world, mud and camping. I am willing to do them to see the KLF.
It'd be so dangerous to DJ a KLF show, I think.
Oh, yeah, there'd be some crazy stunt. They'd set fire to you or the stage or something like that.
Yeah, I'd
Bring out a million
press
pounds
a button and then explode. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Everything's rigged. Yeah.
just to blow up. Levins, do you want to give a quick plug to anything before we go?
So I've got a podcast that comes out every week called Hey Fam. We talk about movies, TV shows, video games, and it's mostly about friendship, so kind of similar to TOFOP as well. I do it with my friend Angus Truscott, who is also current Triple J. I'm everywhere online, at Levins online, on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, etc.
All right.
I'm the opposite of Will. I'm on everything.